You're on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of May 3rd, 2025. A large number of events took place today, so let's get started. Well, let's now move to the line of contact, and we'll begin with the South Donetsk direction, where the armed forces of the Russian Federation continue to improve their positions in the settlement of Bohatyr. Today, Ukrainian sources are publishing these visuals, objective control footage, in which we can observe drone strikes on Russian positions in the very southeastern part of the settlement, essentially within the territory of Bohatyr. The last episode we saw was a drone strike on a Russian soldier at this location. Based on this footage, we conducted a brief geolocation, and there's now enough evidence to say that the Russian army is indeed present in the settlement and is gradually pushing through the Ukrainian defenses. At the same time, as is usually the case these days, the Ukrainian side is trying to keep all its reserves and forces closer to evacuation points in the northern and northwestern parts, which are also regularly targeted by Russian aviation to prevent the evacuation and withdrawal of Ukrainian units from Bohatyr. In other words, the battle is intense and very serious. Next, we move to the Novavka or Dinipro direction. Today, this sector is generating the most geolocated footage and incoming information. Let's start with the fact that over the past 24 hours, the Russian army has improved its positions between the settlements of Preobrazhenka and Troitske. There are reports that the Russian army is now assaulting Troitske from the northeast and has managed to significantly improve its positions. At the same time, intense strikes are being delivered on the settlement of Kharkiv. In this footage, we can observe rocket artillery strikes on Ukrainian positions in this small village in an effort to prevent the redeployment of Ukrainian forces to Troitske. So we see that the Russian army has begun a decisive assault here. It's all fairly clear. The Ukrainian side is preparing some kind of media victory for May 9th. And apparently, for the Russian Federation, a media victory could be an advance into the Dnipro region. We can see that the Russian side is closing the distance. Today, there are also reports of intensified fighting northwest of Novavka along the ravine in the direction of the village of Novavka. According to various sources, the Russian side has managed to expand its control zone around the village of Novaalexandrivka. This information had already been coming in overnight. And this morning, reliable pro-Russian experts reported that the 27th Motorized Infantry Division of the Russian Armed Forces had fully cleared the settlement of Novaalexandrivka. Some pro-Russian experts note that in addition to clearing Novaalexandrivka, certain Russian units also entered the eastern part of the settlement of Novosergivka. And if we're talking about Novosergivka, that's already a settlement located on the border between regions. So the Russian side is approaching a settlement that lies on the very frontier. If they manage to take control of Cerebrians, that would mean an actual physical entry into the Dnipro region, something that, again, could be seen as a major media victory for Russia during the upcoming May holidays. If we summarize all the information published over the past night from various sources, we can say that Russian units are already operating in this zone along the Red Line, steadily closing the gap to the Dnipro region. The distance from a potential Russian position in the eastern part of Novosergivka is now less than 3 kilometers, approximately 2.6 kilometers. So here, possibly, and most likely in the coming days, especially with the onset of a potential ceasefire, we should expect very high-intensity combat activity. Now we move to the Pokrovsk direction. We still have not received any additional confirmation that could clearly and unambiguously confirm the presence of Russian units or regular army forces in the southern part of Pokrovsk. Over the past 48 hours, many posts and publications have been made by various pro-Russian sources, some claiming that the Russian army has secured positions in the southern part of Pokrovsk, while others have said it was the work of reconnaissance and sabotage groups, DRG. So at the moment, the situation remains unclear. There is definitely some confusion, and the area is heavily shrouded in the fog of war. What exactly is happening right now is unknown. Therefore, we are not adjusting the map just yet. There were reports of the presence of Russian units on Pavlo Popovich Street. It's possible that this foothold has already been eliminated by the Ukrainian side, or perhaps the Russian side has expanded its presence. For now, we're keeping the map as it is. We move to the Kostyantynivka direction and the southeastern flank of the Pokrovsk agglomeration, where the Russian army is also continuing its offensive. Let me remind you that yesterday, as a result of fighting, Russian forces managed to break through Ukrainian defenses north of Tarasivka and entered the village of Novavka. The Russian side also began a gradual assault on a stronghold located in the very center. By the start of May 3rd, we have not received any new geolocations or further details about combat activity in this area. It's possible that right now a battle is ongoing in the central and northern parts of Novavka between Russian and Ukrainian units. Apparently, the Russian army is trying to take this stronghold in a swift assault. If they manage to establish control over this position, it would significantly enhance their logistical capabilities from Tarasivka and Berezivka to the north. This would allow the regular army to advance more freely, and the overall situation would shift drastically. The situation around Novopoltavka remains unclear, but most pro-Russian and neutral experts now confirm Russian advances on the eastern outskirts of Malinivka and toward the stronghold located between Yelizavetivka and Malinivka. This means the Russian side is attempting to attack both south and north of the canal network in the area. At the very least, there have been some small map adjustments reported by various analysts. This is how the situation has developed over the past 12 hours. Next, we move toward the Clayban reservoir area. Fighting has intensified here as well. Currently, the Russian army is focused on leveling out the front line. Reports indicate that a series of strongholds and forest belts between Kalinovi, Novoalexandrivka, and Zelene Pole have been taken under control. Some cartographers have already marked this zone in favor of the Russian armed forces. There are also reports of clearing operations in the forest belts between Suka-Balka and Leonidivka. So once again, as we can observe, the Russian army is primarily focused here on leveling the front line, which will certainly free up substantial resources that could later be used to storm the village of Zarya. This village is currently being intensely targeted by Russian artillery and aviation. Zarya is a key village in this direction, and if control is lost, we can talk about a complete collapse of the defense on this part of the front. With the Russian forces gaining access to the next line of defense, namely the Clayban reservoir itself, as well as the settlements of Oleksandr Kalinov and Yablunivka. Now we move on to the Siversky Donetsk-Donbas canal, where, according to various sources, the Russian army is also steadily advancing along the railway. Several positions were reportedly taken under control today, near small reservoirs north of the settlement of Toretsk. There are also reports of forest belts and Ukrainian positions being cleared on the route toward the village of Pivnichna Dilivka. This is how the map has changed over the past 24 hours in the northern Dilivka direction and the northern Toretsk direction. Regarding Kostyantynivka and Chasiv Yar, no significant updates as of now. Next, we move on to the Cerebriansky and Siversk directions, where Russian forces are also continuing their offensive. At this stage, Russian units are very close to securing full control of the village of Hryhorivka and the strongholds to its south. The offensive in this sector began around April 27th to 28th, 2025. This is how the map looked on April 27th, when strikes were being carried out on Hryhorivka and nearby positions. By April 28th, there were already signs that Russian troops had managed to establish a foothold on the eastern outskirts. On April 29th, the Russian side shifted focus slightly southward, likely targeting Ukrainian reinforcements being transferred to stabilize the front line. It appears these rotation and reinforcement attempts failed. Around April 30th, Ukrainian forces attempted a counterattack between Siversk and Verkhnyokamyanska, but Russian artillery, drones, and air power responded effectively, and these Ukrainian counterattacks also appear to have failed. On May 1st, reports began to emerge of Russian artillery strikes on Ukrainian positions in the settlement of Cerebrianka and to the southwest of Hryhorivka. These were not counterstrikes, but artillery preparation by Russian forces in advance of a new wave of large-scale assaults aimed at taking control of these areas, Cerebrianka and Hryhorivka. On May 2nd, there were no major updates, but by the morning of May 3rd, the first evidence appeared suggesting that Russian units had improved their positions in the eastern part of Hryhorivka, and as of now, fighting is taking place for the central part of the village. These visuals show a series of FPV drone strikes on Russian soldiers advancing into the village. The western outskirts of Kharkiv are being regularly hit by air and artillery strikes to prevent the delivery of reinforcements and the evacuation of Ukrainian troops from the center and east. Additionally, some cartographers report further Russian advances along the forest belts south of Kharkiv and southeast of Cerebrianka. These are the latest map adjustments provided by neutral analysts. Regarding the Kupiansk direction, no map changes in the past 24 hours. Next, we move to the Kharkiv direction. During the last night, the Russian side carried out massive drone strikes on the city of Kharkiv, using a large number of Geran-type drones. As for the Sumy direction, no changes. And that's it for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and all the best to you.